capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number, or is 2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know,
It's
Zach.
a tough one. I
It's
know,
really hard.
and maybe
Yes.
comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her.
Hello and welcome back, everybody, to Bread Theory. I'm your host, Zach, and joining me, as usual, is Dan Platt of the Albany County Green Party. How you doing tonight, Dan?
I'm fine from Albany.
Did I say it wrong again?
Yes.
I don't know why that word is always
Because you're
Albany.
Midwestern and you can't help.
Yeah, because I just not used to it. Albany.
But you know what we have in common? Ice, right?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's freezing rain. That's the issue. So, snow's
Yeah,
great.
so we don't have so much
If
of that.
it just kept snowing all weekend, it would be so easy to clean.
Right.
But no, half of Saturday it was like rain, but it was just above freezing, or it was freezing. So if I unfortunately didn't clear that water quick enough, and like anyway, the whole city's covered in ice, an inch, at least an inch of ice.
Oh, that's awful.
If nothing was cleared, I cleared the slush. So the ice on my walk was a little thinner, but it was still very solid. But thankfully I do have an ice pick.
That's good. That's
or
an
rather,
essential.
it's an ice breaker. It's like a half hoe, half pick on the other side. So that was helpful. But I'm using more salt than I ever do, and I'm don't like using salt because it literally makes our lakes upstate half seawater.
Yeah.
And but
it's not good in the long term.
You can't really help it. Otherwise, literally half of the sidewalks in Albany are just glaciers. And it's going to be freezing all week, so it's not going to melt even a little bit. Certain places it can get a little soft if the sun can hit it. But there's not too much of that either. So bit of a mess. And it's really not an easy way. Like, even if everyone's even most owners are pretty slow in clearing walks normally. And it's sort of so the last 2 years, we barely got any snow. So no one cared. But then years like this, it's been pretty frequent. So now everyone can't shut up about, where's the enforcement? Where's the city? It's like, but okay, so I went to a neighborhood association meeting last week.
Yeah.
I'm running for council, so I'm going to do that more. And they had the DGS, Department of General Services, guy. He kind of looks like an egg. And he made it clear that it's like, look, if you want the city to enforce, well, rather, he didn't put it this way, but here's what I'm going to tell people. Like, you either want a big government surveillance state to punish everybody, but we're a city. We can't either. Like, do you want the city setting up cameras and having a big surveillance state of some kind, where the police department is just going around not like, I don't know, that they could. I guess they could, but they also not. Because our police department actually has, was it 40 vacancies? It has a lot of vacancies.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm cool with it, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
I would just
are they just not funding it, or what is the deal?
Good question. The governor is allocating $1 million for what her office is calling a safety surge. I believe this is the million is to go to increasing salaries to encourage people to sign up. But generally, the and it's not just our police department. Most police departments in New York are basically like in a recruitment crisis, like the military. Most people are not. There aren't really enough people interested in being cops.
What a shame.
Maybe if policing were to change fundamentally, that's sort of where, as city council, where I would go with things. We need to transform our police department, Department of Public Safety, be serious about it being staffed with de-escalators and social workers,
Right.
since what the police are usually dealing with is social problems.
Social work stuff.
And we can keep on the amount of investigators we have because there are some murders that happen.
Yeah,
And
investigators are important for
they
sure.
seem to find whoever did it, if they're to be trusted. Sometimes it's not too difficult to figure out. Oh yeah, these teen. I mean, we had an actually pretty nasty murder recently. It was a 22-year-old. He was sitting in his car on his residential street, and he was shot in the head, point blank. So like the person who was ever beefing with him, just like noticed him, walked up,
and did
and
it.
just capped.
Wow.
Pretty nasty, and it's hard. Maybe it'll be released what it was about. Was it over women? Was it cash? Was it drugs? Was it the stupidest petty beef? Because like what drives some asshole to go like, well, here's my chance. It's either him or me. We've got a beef, and he would kill me if it was the reversed, or
Sure.
maybe this guy is the worst asshole, and the guy he shot was actually just like let it go or whatever it was.
Mhm.
Who knows? Police can maybe find out. But anyway, it's pretty nasty. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff the last week. Black History stuff. I got a shirt that just says Black History, period.
Cool.
And it's made by a teen who found his love of screen printing.
That's awesome.
Because the shirts are only $10, so it's like, oh shit.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of stuff on Black History as well for my social studies class. Had the kids watch about a 2-hour documentary on the Tulsa Race Massacre. So I thought it was, it's one of those important things that very few people even today know about. So.
Yeah, I mean, I remember since 2018, most activist type people are like, sharing about it.
Yeah, but even still, that's not really mainstream.
As a history nerd, I guess I know about a lot of stuff ahead of time, mostly because like I go to special talks or lectures that mention these things, and so I feel a smug superiority of like, I know all of this already. But it's just because it's a special interest, I guess.
Yeah.
Going to history lectures on my own time, getting a history minor, and so on. And reading books, nonfiction books. Hi, Legend.
How's it going?
The Legend.
The Legend. The myth.
So let's get to cooking.
Yeah, let's get into it. We have some cool stuff to look at tonight.
So I'm not just gabbing about local issues.
Hey, local politics are always interesting.
The interview I did with a guy from New York in Queens. The long and short of it is, interesting guy. He's like a really good agitator, and like the 3 monikers: educate, organize, agitate. Sure. Well, he's an agitator, but his issue is he doesn't turn it off. And he agitates with anyone. He agitates
glued to that soapbox.
Anyone who he perceives as having more power than him.
Okay.
Which could be everybody.
I got a soft spot for those sort of.
But he's a New York underliner for the People's Party.
Oh, okay.
And so he is one of the many people burned by all of that. But Mike, like many other People's Party actors, he's a Green Party person who just feels burned by the party because, well, I'm going to make tea of Bill T, because he could rant about Jill Stein for an hour. I can rant about him. That he's annoying. He's annoying. He annoys people, and they tell him to get lost. And so that's my version, my interpretation of why he's burned. Could there be legitimate complaints along the way? Likely, but they don't really come through if you're really annoying about it. What's the proper way? Is this about like my couching civility politics? I hope not. But I just know there is a line between like being a fellow organizer, an activist, getting along with people, and just like, oh, you're not giving me the time of day enough, or you're not platforming me the way I want, or you're not platforming me, period, because I haven't really established myself. It's just like, there's sort of a question of like, well, is it just you? It's like, well, isn't me enough? Don't I matter? But in the game of politics, it actually does need to be you and your friends.
You need a few people to back you
and
up,
it needs to be more than just you, and then a friend of yours also going up to Jill Stein and hassling her, and another friend of yours going up and hassling Jill Stein. And then when they blow all of them off, take that as evidence that they're hiding something.
You were right. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were right. They were wrong to shun you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so check out. So I'm not encouraging it, but like there's an interview. I downloaded it and I clipped to the first 40, 50 minutes, which is fine. It's him just interviewing me. And then an hour in, we switched to Green Party dirty laundry, which quite frankly, I could follow most of what he was getting at only because I'm in the thick of it, or at least in it. But anyone else would be like, what the fuck is these two guys talking about? Like, I can half understand what he's getting at. And even when I'm trying to clarify with him, he's just like, in rant mode.
For sure.
Very interesting stuff.
Cannot switch it off. Always interesting people, though, that can just switch it on and just keep going.
Well, he can. I mean, he let me talk. He didn't interrupt me all the time. He was very cordial and all that. And so I do not. This is not all negative.
No, I got
but it's just a little like no one's all bad or all good. I'm sure I can be annoying times.
Can't we all? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll stop there.
No, was not.
But just like I got the sense as we were going along that like I don't think he's listening to me because I'm telling him over and over I'm focusing on local stuff, and he keeps bringing up state level stuff.
He's
like
he
wants to work with me, recruit me to his network of activists. He literally invited me to a Facebook group of like his name, activist network or coalition. Sure. Use the word coalition, and I'm like, a coalition is not a group of individuals, right? It's a group of groups. And he thinks that because we've now interacted, that Albany County Green Party is now like, and he labeled me as leader of Albany County Greens, and I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like being put on as a leader because it's like, look, chair, coordinator, like my title's chair. I'm clear about it, and then he's kind of endorsed. But anyway, I got this. Like, he wasn't not listening to me, but he was also he had his own agenda to push.
He was
his own stuff,
steered in a certain direction.
His own stuff, like the things he wanted to rant about, and I kept trying to turn the conversation to be about like certain other people or like I have these gripes, but he had all these other names to throw at me, and I'm like, no, I haven't interacted. I don't know all these people. I'm not in your world, or rather, it's like, oh, look at this evidence. Look at the people I pal around with. The leaders of anyway, it's like I don't care.
All right, well, let's get into the videos now. So the first one we're gonna look at tonight.
Oh yeah, so let me introduce this guy. He's a new left tuber. He's I guess the new wave here of post left tube or bread tube.
Yeah.
And so obviously like a Zoomer guy. But like sort of a cooler left wing JREG.
Okay.
Like that's the style he's going for.
Yeah,
don't
I
know what's
almost
up
thought it
with
was a
all the liquor-
JREG when I saw the
Exactly. Yeah.
the
I mean,
title.
he's using his format. I don't know what's up with the liquor bottles, but and the like jail uniform,
Yeah, Department of
prison
Corrections
uniform.
mannequin. Yeah,
I don't know what up with that, but
I'm sure
he
there's
makes
a lot
videos
there.
about left wing communication. Like if you're a baby leftist, here are the things you should do. Here are the myths of being on the left that you should, things that you should ignore. Pretty good advice, especially if you are newly radicalized, which is always happening to somebody.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is his own political compass. Not really a political compass, but you'll see. So
Yeah, let's take a look.
Thank you for coming to my first in-person lecture. Today I'm going to share with you a model that I developed for categorizing different political outlooks. And for all you sickos in the audience, this is not a political compass. You guys know what the political compass is. It graphs political tendencies on an XY quadrant sort of thing. It's supposed to help you map out your beliefs and sort of categorize it in terms of like what other people believe, right? So it's supposed to be useful, but I found that it's actually essentially like drills everything down to this like niche micro ideologies and makes it impossible to actually build coalitions, which is kind of like the opposite of my political project. So that's what led me to develop my own conceptual framework for thinking about different political distinctions. This model takes into account factors that the standard political compass leaves out. Namely, it graphs things along psychological distinctions rather than ideological distinctions, which I think is really important. So without further ado, I'll get into it and just show you how this works. The x-axis here represents how far your beliefs are from the mainstream. So this right here would be sort of like the typical centrist position, right? Like the absolute mainstream. And this would be like very...
So I just want to get out that I'm okay with identifying your exact tendency or micro ideology. It's just a matter of like coalition building is a matter of also being able to identify, and by tendency, I mean like what your ideal strategy is.
Right.
Being able to be conscious of that. And then that's your standard for coalition building. So various groups could be either based on issue but I prefer groups based in strategy. What strategy are they defining what their strategy is? Do they have a theory of social change? So I'm a member of the IWW because they're very clear. The strategy is militant union organizing,
right?
Independent.
One big union. Mm-hmm.
One big union. Not anti-business union. Differentiating itself from other reformist things. And it's just very clear. That's what they do. And so they can have solidarity with other types of strategies, but that is their strategy.
That's
so I like that. Green Party, our strategy is clear. We're an electoral party, just an electoral arm of the left of social movements. That is our strategy. There are disagreements, and I get into that with my orientation presentation of like, well, some kind of think of us as prefigurative, or they want to do prefigurative politics. But on the other hand, it's hard to do community gardens or make them mainstream if your local city council gets in the way. Or if the laws are against you, or like, hey, there are towns that ban yard gardens,
front yard gardening.
So you need to sort of fight. Movements will always be fighting those who currently hold office unless you are contesting them.
Absolutely.
So you sort of need multiple strategies working at once. I chose kind of electoral Green Party stuff because during Occupy, there was the least interest in doing that independent electioneering. Otherwise, people are just like, well, I guess we got to vote blue no matter who. Yeah. And that was the most frustrating, demoralizing. Just what the hell was all of Occupy for?
Right.
If we're just left with that
as going to get funneled
because I mean, not that most occupiers as anarchists were doing that, but too many anarchists were like, yeah, we're going to vote blue no matter who on election day.
Yeah.
And that's just the using harm reduction as their justification. Meanwhile, we're doing all the other revolutionary radical dual power stuff, but like 10 years of mutual aid is not building dual power.
Right.
Especially when just like it's interesting that mutual aid you'd think is the kind of thing that can never be co-opted, never be made into the mainstream. But my city last year had what DGS did this. It was just once, but they did a drop and swap, basically a really, really free market,
Sure,
or
sure.
free store, like we do, like what Food Not Bombs does every month with
Right.
with all the mutual aiders. But they did a big one where they set up a tent in the park, and people could bring their clothes and take clothes. It was a big 1-day thing, and sure, it doesn't have the store, like they're not storing stuff like our free store does.
Sure.
But eventually, you can see that they do that because hell, the city has warehouse space. DGS has the whole facility where they take all of the park waste, the clippings and the leaves, and they compost it. And so they have
Right, yeah.
piles of
Plenty of that too, yeah.
rubbish, of mulch, of compost and salt, dirt that any resident can come and fill
Mhm.
3 sacks worth, which I plan to do maybe. But I'm running for office. I probably shouldn't garden this year. but I do want to. I want to at least
Slow.
clear my
Slow
yard,
monster.
so I can at least work on that, killing the ivy,
There you go.
and so maybe it'll be ready for gardening next year.
Oh, do you have like the English ivy or something like that taking over?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Oh boy, that can be nasty, especially in the Northeast. It really
Well,
is.
I've been collecting cardboard, and I have a number of tarps. Should that be enough?
It should be. Yeah, yeah. As long as you can block out that sun for long enough, anything will die. So you should be okay. It will die.
Back to the video.
Back to the video.
Very, very fringe, right? The further you get from the center, the further outside the mainstream your ideas are. Pretty intuitive, right? The y-axis, rather, represents the conviction with which you hold those beliefs. So down here are the people who don't really have a coherent belief system. They don't think about politics too much. They don't really engage with it other than sort of on a surface level. They're basically engaging with materials that are just around in the cultural zeitgeist. This is like slop politics. This is like algorithmically driven, like YouTube Shorts politics. People who get their politics from like Aiden Ross or whatever.
Ugh.
And then, of course, up here is people who spend a lot of time thinking about politics. They're very committed to their political leanings. And like I would argue that most people actually are down here. It seems like everybody's up here when you're online, right? It seems like everybody has super strong opinions on everything. But in reality, I would argue most people have not thought through their beliefs. These are the people who are most motivated to spread their ideologies, right? Is like obviously the people who are going to be online are the ones who are most like hyper focused on their personal like ideological fixations. And also like, you know, a lot of the people up here, their media careers are tied to their ideological positions. Like Ben Shapiro is never not going to be a conservative because it would be horrible. It would just not just be embarrassing for him. It would be bad for his career. It would like kill his career. So he's never going to change his mind. Now, there's one more dimension of this model that I want to draw your attention to. This is what I call the freak line. So what is a freak? I consider a freak to be anybody who cannot think through their positions. This is like somebody who holds their positions dogmatically and has like lost the ability to engage rationally with other people who they may disagree with. Like a freak is essentially a person who has turned their political outlook into like religious dogma. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, versus somebody who like has not even conceptualized their ideology as such. Like they haven't even thought through, this is what I believe. Like they've not tried to like systematize whatever they're thinking into like a coherent belief system because they just don't care. They're like, you know, not really political. This is what I think is special about this model is it's not necessarily ideological. You can be dogmatic about a mainstream position. You could also have positions that are far outside the mainstream, but you're thinking through them critically. You're willing to engage with other people. You're not a freak, right? You can be a...
So something that jumps out to me on a second viewing is that to me, normie and mainstream are synonyms.
Yeah.
Now he does go in. He does kind of end with acknowledgement that like, look, it's really just a one spectrum sort of idea, and I just wanted to basically represent that along the spectrum of normie to fringe, or mainstream to fringe, that you can you can be dogmatic, and that's another axis. And so I guess, but I'm just pointing out mainstream and normie are the same. So when I'm sort of, and this comes from my, not disappointment, but it's just like, I'm wondering, like, he has the line for an extreme, caring about politics and ideology, but there's no opposite extreme of not caring.
Yeah, there's no
though that you could
apathetic. I suppose if you went way down to the
one,
bottom,
he doesn't, but like an anti-politics. But again, anti-politics is a type of politics.
Yes, an acquiescence to the status quo.
Right. So.
Yeah. All right, let's move on.
A status quo freak, or you can be like fringe but still reasonable. A well thought out, nuanced position right here. And here's the other thing. You can have fringe positions that you're holding loosely, and you're still not really a freak, right? Because you're not fully committed to them. It's just kind of something that you're repeating from somebody who may be up here, right? You're ideologically getting your positions down here from somebody up here. So I think that's an important distinction to make. Not everybody is actually committed in the same way as everybody else. So like, if you're watching this channel, you're probably somewhat up here. Hopefully you're not all the way up in this territory, but you are sort of across this line. This is, I guess I would call this like the consciousness line. This is where you're like self-consciously ideological. You're thinking about your beliefs systemically. You're probably somewhere up here. But it would be a mistake to think that everybody is as committed to their beliefs as you are. You might meet somebody who's down here, and even though they agree with you, they don't hold their beliefs with the same specificity that you do. So, like, what's the implications of this model? I'm not telling you to like give up your convictions. I'm not telling you to like go down here and sort of stop thinking about politics.
So another thought that crosses my mind is how like this is acknowledgement that like the freaks are in charge of the conversation. They're leading it. They're guiding it.
That's a good point to pick out.
And all the normies are basically the sheep.
Yeah, it's kind of following along.
The freaks being the flock, the shepherds. Now, to be consciously a freak is sort of like makes me think of like figures like Hawes and other demigods. I suppose any demigod is maybe consciously or unconsciously. It's sort of hard to prove that they're consciously being dogmatic so that they affect and attract an audience. And he's like, look how
it's good for the algorithm. That's for
sure he is. Look how confident he is.
Yeah.
He yells a lot. He must be know something I don't. Yeah, and I think something that like the reason online tankies exist is because for a generation, especially like Gen X, the left wasn't dogmatic. Like they were anti-dogmatic. They were like, we're not going to be sure about anything because we're just rethinking everything because the Soviet Union exists, but we don't believe in that project. And the 60s project has fallen flat. The New Deal era is on the wane. Neoliberalism is here to stay, and we don't know we can resist it, but we really don't know how to counter it. And we're still in that fallout because we're essentially 30 years behind where we could be we should be as a left.
Sure.
And so there's sort of, to me, I mean, I'm channeling my own resentfulness towards lefties like my father, or others of my, that were maybe like very, firm activists, but that's all they could ever be because they were never confident enough or tactful enough to build mainstream movements or to go outside of like their community or whatever shell, like in the same way that like the nonprofit sector, just for all the money they may have, can never outreach more than 50 people at a time, because when it comes down to it, it's like they just don't have the time because they're box checkers, but they just don't seem to like talking to workers. It's like they just don't canvas. Why don't they canvas? They have to be like, they have money or they have a salary. Why aren't they spending a day a week canvassing or something, or an evening? But that would be off hours. So it's just like, I'm on the clock, and then when I'm on the clock, I'm in the office, and that means like I can only do this and then that. They seem to do all this work, or they seem to be like out of breath all the time. But it's just like I don't know what they're doing. It's frustrating watching nonprofit people at work, because it seems like they have a schedule, they have stuff they're doing, and it seems like they're working hard. But then like what they have to show for it is like, why isn't there like a bigger organization here?
Right.
Why is it still just 5-10 people involved with this? If I was a paid organizer, I feel like, I'd be ashamed if I didn't have like a 50-person like people I could call up and they would like, do the favor or show up, or supporting or something, or like, or get the projects done. So like the nonprofit, like the Radix Center or the Food Hub, that's a lot of people involved. It's a lot of people paid, and it's nonprofit sector stuff. So that's the side where it's like, that's successful. Why is it the people? Anyway, the ones that are actually supposed to be politically organizing, it's just the same 10, 20 people.
Yeah. Again and again. All right, moving on.
Politics, like, oh, it's not that deep, bro. Because it is that deep. We need people who are going to be able to think through things, right? We need people who are going to try and solve problems. If we are going to meet the challenges of the 21st century head on, we need a lot of people who are up here, who are thinking about things thoroughly and who care. So I'm not against ideology as such. I'm against dogmatism. And I think dogmatism is the enemy that must be avoided. Because when you become a freak, right, when you accept your beliefs unquestioningly, when it turns into sort of like a religious faith for you, that makes you unable to engage with the world pragmatically. It prevents you from looking at the world as it is. And it causes you to basically purity test out anybody who doesn't agree with you 100%, right? The further you are up here, the less you can tolerate people who are to either side's you, right? So if you're here, it's hard for you to tolerate anybody who's outside you. Whereas if you have a more nuanced approach, you can kind of work with people who are in a broader spectrum. You can sort of start to form coalitions. You can figure out who agrees with you on what and who you can work with. You have a more nuanced way of like thinking through political stuff, right? This is kind of a common thing on the left. Anybody who is to the left of me is a tanky. Anybody who is to the right of me is a liberal. You've lost the ability to have any sort of nuanced conversation, and you're going to create disagreements even when there are none. This is what freaks do, because it's not a political commitment, it's a pathology. The more of a freak you are, the harder it is to distinguish where people are on the x-axis as well. So you might see somebody who holds extreme beliefs, but they're not actually like that committed to it. They just kind of like saw some stuff from like Alex Jones or whatever, and they were like, oh, that's funny, right? This is a lot of people. This is millions of people. But if you're up here, you assume that everybody holds it with the same level that you do. So you attack this person as an enemy, and you end up alienating people that you could potentially win over or work with. And that's a bad thing, I think. What I'm encouraging you, like the action step of this video, or like the takeaway, I suppose, is there's a golden mean here where you have conviction, but you are not dogmatic. This is the golden mean between like not caring, not trying to systematize your beliefs, not thinking them through, and like holding your beliefs dogmatically. I think both of those things are dangers. There's a real danger in having your movement hijacked by freaks, whether you're on the left or the right, because freaks, they're good at seeming like they have a lot of conviction.
Kook.
They can appear.
I don't know if there's some kind of advantage to using kook than freak. Freak seems to maybe have more of a negative connotation to me. Kook is something that I don't think is like. I don't mean when I use it, I don't mean to be completely derogatory, but just describe someone who is dogmatic, I guess.
A little kooky. Sure, I can see that.
But I mean, dogmatic and fringe.
Sure.
So I guess that's the particular. So if you're dogmatic but mainstream, different word is used. Maybe see you next Tuesday.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I was thinking about that when I was watching one of those, a Vine type of video of Congresswoman Mace, the latest in this season's Republican hag,
Great.
where she used tranny when talking of, like, she was questioning these governors or something about U.S. aid, and the things they fund that are woke, and so some of it is, she was like, it's helping these trannies, and like, and one of the Democratic congressmen were like, well, he was literally like the stereotype, like, there are people who find that the T word, like, offensive, and it's offends some people, and she's like, huh? What do you mean T word? I don't know. Oh, tranny? Well, tranny,
Oh God.
And so, like, the other,
I think I did.
And the chairman was like, oh, I'm just a corn-fed lawyer from Kentucky. I don't know these big city words and what's politically correct. And he was no help at all.
That's awful. Oh God.
It was so cringe.
Absolutely. Also, welcome in, Jet Extremist. Good to see you. It's been a while. How are you doing? I don't keep up with Twitch too often. I assume you're still doing your regular streams. What have you been up to lately? I'd love to know. But yeah. All right. Well, let's continue with the video.
To be principled, when in fact it's a cover for intellectual weakness, because they're intellectually inflexible. It's easy to sort of like allow freaks to infiltrate a movement because they may seem ideologically aligned with you, and they may be, but because they're sort of operating on this psychological plane that is not helpful or conducive to dialogue, it doesn't work. So the sooner that we learn to sort of identify and root out freak characteristics within ourselves and within our movements, the more successful we'll be. All right, any questions?
I think my question is just kind of like, I think a lot of the emphasis on the purpose of this scale is kind of on that dogmatism level, and like the need to kind of take a review on yourself with that. So what is the mainline to fringe axis? Like, what does that help adding that in when we're trying to kind of reach this goal of reviewing our dogmatic impulses? Like, is it just kind of to make it like an axis, or is it like they're like are we going to choose that instead of like another?
Yeah, like why make it two-dimensional? What's the function of the mainline to fringe axis? So the purpose of the mainline to fringe axis is basically to convey that somebody could have positions that are on paper like really fringe and crazy, but since they hold them with such like a low level of like they're holding their opinions loosely rather than like super like, oh yeah, like I really believe this, right? Like I love Alex Jones, I ride for Alex Jones or whatever. They just kind of saw something funny, but they just like, they don't really care. They're not really thinking through. So you could have somebody who's like here, and I don't want people to make the mistake of thinking that person is automatically here. Like, this guy's crazy. Right. It's like, no, he just heard something that a crazy person said.
I just thought of and I'm just here. I think I agree with a lot of what he's been saying, by the way. After 15 years of being in politics, I can spot a freak very quickly. I think after 5 minutes in a meeting, I think I can go like, oh shit, we got a freak here. This is bad news, because it's like either you have to find a way of like shunning them, or like asking them to leave, or doing some things that basically turn them off, and then figure out that they won't be welcome here, or this won't be a place that they can just settle in and run roughshod over people. Like, you just basically the second you like shut them down, like, hey, you're interrupting, or well, we're actually not going to do that. I mean, sometimes a freak can be a plant. Or an op, and we have a history, whether COINTELPRO or just standard police infiltration, of the person who suggests the most and they're very dogmatic about how militant we need to be, and we need to burn some shit down.
More extreme action,
But if it's the tell is that are they the only person who's being this way?
Did they just show up one day and
If half the group is like, why aren't we black blocking up? Well, okay, then that just means okay, then maybe we should do some black block and do some vandalism. But that's based on like the group. Like I said, the group is aligned by means of strategy, a fringe strategy, and they're dogmatic. They believe in doing it. So you can get, I guess you can have a formation that's just all freaks, and I guess maybe the Boogaloo Boys count as that, or
do they though, or is that more of like a
or First perhaps count, but to
Yeah.
go on the other side.
yeah.
Or
So,
ALF.
yeah.
ALF is that the acronym? ALF, Animal Liberation Front.
Yeah, I think those are ELF and ALF are two different orgs, but they're pretty closely related.
Well, he is Earth Liberation.
Yeah. I had something I was going to say. But yeah, that idea that a freak, as he's terming it, is going to push the stuff that's going to get your entire organization in trouble. I think that is probably the best argument against allowing yourself to be dogmatic, because that is a danger, especially when you're a small org and you don't have much power. And
Radical acceptance, which Occupy had, basically made it an attractor of all the freaks and kooks, which gives it the circus-like atmosphere. A lot of clowns. Some clowns are funny.
They can be fun, but like,
and they have high energy, and sometimes they are scary and they scare people away, or they're freaks and they scare people away.
Another thing that's coming up for me though too,
which is counter to what I said before about freaks being the leaders, the mouthpieces of society that influence the most.
Yeah.
But what do MAGA count as? Because they are very dogmatic about their support for Trump, but they have not thought through their beliefs.
They have such low information about it.
They don't stand up to scrutiny in the slightest, and they know it as soon as all those on the street interviews. As soon as they're asked basic questions of like, what has Trump done, what policies, they're like, I just know he's good because I like him,
Yeah,
and they're very dogmatic about it, but they haven't thought through it. So I don't know his.
I think that would go in kind of the normie section of just like they have very extreme beliefs. They just haven't thought through them. But I think that the assumption that I think he's making, that I don't know is necessarily a good one, is that if you don't hold your beliefs very tightly, if you're just kind of, you heard a thing and now you believe it, that you can be changed. Like that's just that, like, loosely held beliefs are a substitute for malleable beliefs.
Like,
and I don't think that's always true.
That's what I was getting at with like his bottom. Normie, and normies can be very dogmatic as well.
Exactly.
So the dogma line isn't just the top, the people who hold things. People can be really loose, or rather normative, and still be very dogmatic. I mean, that's sort of what's railed against with anti-religion and just general radical attitudes of normie hating and normie bashing, is that it's hating how actually the normies are more dogmatic than the radicals, because radicals have fought through their beliefs. And that's sort of how I saw it in college and growing, not just growing up, but getting to college. Now, like, I'm thinking through my beliefs, and that's making me much more confident in them.
Mm-hmm.
Also pulling me towards the fringe.
Sure.
Because what's mainstream is very dogmatic, and I'm avoiding that like the plague. So he's taking some ideas and trying to visualize it.
Yeah, like I admire the effort.
I have another. Let's see if I can share my screen. Yep, share screen. And first, let me open up this graphic I made. I made this myself. It's a visualization of another YouTuber who did a much longer video, which I won't subject you to, but it's fine because I can summarize it with this graphic. Share screen, and
should come up.
I don't want to share entire screen.
Should be able to just do like a tab or something.
Yeah, I know, but it's a window.
Oh, it's a file.
Yeah.
I think you have to do, what is it?
My options are
The
Discord.
plus sign. Try the plus sign. You should be able
Okay.
to do a presentation or whatever.
screen share.
Whatever it's on.
Whoops.
See if that works.
There we go. It did.
No, I'm not seeing it.
Huh. Hold on, let me try again.
Yeah, so it's not coming up on my end at all.
Stop it. Okay. Oh, it's saying it's not allowed.
Oh,
Maybe you could allow it for me.
I don't know how to do that.
All right, I guess we'll just keep going. Anyway,
Yeah, sorry about that.
maybe next time we'll figure it out off screen. And I mean, it's a cultural compass of It's a cultural compass of neoliberalism. So it is a standard square political compass, but the quadrants represent the x-axis is the consumer axis between minimalism and maximalism. And the
Okay.
y-axis is a idealism axis, with the bottom being realist and the top being mysticist. So, for example, the center maximalist culture is fandom. A realist maximalism is like a hustler. And a mysticist maximalist is like the dark enlightenment post-humanist tech bros.
Oof.
So like mysticism is like the conspiracy culture, tech bro culture, and like trad life culture, wellness, and other types of subcultures. Anyway, it's hard to, the visual is a good tool. But anyway, like this guy is trying to visualize a certain idea that isn't complete, but it's part of it.
Would it be possible to upload that folder or that file to like Google Drive or something? You could probably present it that way.
Like you would open it?
Or you could probably do it. You could probably share it if it just needs to be in a tab. So like if you open up a Google Drive and upload it, then it would be in a tab. I think that should work.
All right, give me a moment. Well, play the video.
Yep, we'll do.
Like hopped on that bandwagon. If you had like a real conversation with him, you could probably, I don't want to say like deprogram, because that's so like high and mighty. Like let me deprogram you, bro. Let me like show you the truth. I don't know. I think that's like goofy, but it's, you could win him over, or sort of then make him be like, oh yeah, you're right, dude. That's stupid, right? Because if he's here, like actual conspiracy theorist, hardcore, whatever, you're not ever going to get to him. Yeah. But if it's just kind of like sitting down here who's like doesn't really care, you could sort of sway them. All right. So now this is where the audience participation section comes in. We're going to play a little game. I'll show you a couple phrases, and then we're going to attribute it to a person, and we're gonna plot them on this axis. We're gonna use this model. This is a little game that I call Spot the Freak. Okay. All right. Number 1. Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization.
Absolutely a freak. I know.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
Saying
Freak.
this.
Extreme
Say like
fringe.
middle on the mainstream line.
No.
Maybe a little more fringe. Probably around
Zionism
that.
is mainstream.
It is, but like Pete Hegseth is not mainstream. He is way out there. He's like he's basically a fascist. I think he has a fascist tattoo, in fact. So yeah, he's definitely in the freaks.
Right here. Okay.
But like more towards fringe.
Oh yeah, like here.
A little more towards fringe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No preview.
Any other
available.
guesses?
I would put it a little bit less on fringe.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe not quite that.
You think most people think Zionism is the front line of Western
I
civilization?
don't know the front line, but I don't think too many. A large proportion of people are gonna like consider that fringe.
I could be wrong, but I actually put it up here.
Really?
Yes, because the reason that I put him fully on freak.
Or what are you considering? Are you considering mainstream like the general American populace, or are you saying like lawmakers of the last?
Yeah, that's the
Good
thing.
question.
Like American like sentiment, I'd say, is actually like sort of moving against Zionism, especially like for young people. But among lawmakers, I'd say lockstep.
Okay.
Israel gets they get a lot of money whenever they want it. Lawmakers in both parties are like firmly Zionist.
Yeah, there's
So
a
that
big
we
difference
have
between being a
military,
Zionist
you
and
know.
thinking that Zionism is like a pinnacle of Western thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think defending Zionism as an ideology is a lot different. Is a lot different than saying like I think that it's good to have a lot of military
Yeah.
bases accessible near Iran.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we can maybe put Hegseth around here, right? Because in terms of like what ideology has sway in the government, it's Zionism. Like for sure. Like Israel gets as much money as they want, as I said. But the reason that I'm putting him fully on freak is this is a guy whose career and livelihood is like tied to this, right? So he's not gonna reconsider that position. He is like fully ideologically committed to that.
Or at least not public.
Yeah, he could never publicly question this belief. So he's fully a freak. He's fully committed to his ideology, right? Okay, example, phrase number 2. Bro, we should tear down Gaza and make it into a casino. That'd be sick. This was heard firsthand by me last night. I heard somebody say
I sent you a
this.
link to my G Drive,
Oh, cool. Okay,
so you can try opening that.
let's take a look.
See if it goes anywhere. I was reminded via a post, and it sounds about right, that the expulsion of Gazans or Palestinians from Gaza and developing it as a seaside resort has been American foreign policy since the aughts, like since invading Iraq. So it's not a new idea. It's definitely not Trump's idea. It's what Israel's always is like wanting to do.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not seeing it come up for some reason. I don't know what's happening with that. I don't know what's wrong with the link, but it's not coming up for me.
It's just strange watching liberals maybe be comfortable that like, oh, I can protest the government because it's Trump. Because I can assume that they were not satisfied with Biden as president. But
Yeah, but I doubt they were.
the
Yeah,
liberals would never
mobilizing at all.
protest. They don't protest Democrats because it's their team.
It's their dude. Yeah,
They, at best, you get some activists who are like, we're pressuring our allied progressive
right.
Congress people to do better.
Yeah,
Which is a fringe in itself as a strategy.
yeah. That was certainly a unique thing about Occupy is that it came out while Obama was in the thick of his presidency.
Yeah, but it wasn't started by liberals. It was
Exactly.
started
Yeah,
by
yeah.
anarchists.
So
Because liberals would not protest Obama.
right.
And that's why I joined, because I wanted to protest Obama, but no progressive even was talking or willing to do that. Even with everything horrible, they were just, all they would say was, well, the Republicans are so bad. So but yeah, I don't see you protesting them even.
Right.
So it's like, well, because it's Congress people who are in a different state, right? It's like, there's always sort of an excuse or a cop out where, well, what, and I do this myself actually, like, what do you want me to do about it? I can't do this direct action. I'm here in New York. You know, there's no trans person in my area that's like ready to kill themselves, and I need to help them right now. I suppose I could donate money for the people in those other states. The fund to help trans people move to New York.
Right. Yeah. But
I could-
yeah,
I
other
could
than
throw
that,
$100
what
to
can
that.
you? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, and also there's only, any one person only has so much energy to devote to various causes. So you do have to pick and choose about what are going to be most effective.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, like, to me, Green Party is like, because it's an ideological organization and not an issue one. It's not limited to these silos of action, even though it's where people are going to put their energy because it's something one thing at a time. Kind of picking the worst thing and acting there. These are good principles. All right, finish this up.
Indeed. Yeah. Oh, I was going to send you, maybe if you share
get the-
directly. I couldn't
Oh.
get the Google Drive link to work, so maybe if you share directly with my email.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. Share. What Gmail address should I be using?
Just put it in the chat there for you.
Yeah. Making me do my work. I do enough of this at work. I can't really paste into this. Let's see, Bread Theory channel.
Or you could just try sharing your screen yourself on that tab.
Well, I just tried doing that. It's not
That
an
didn't
option.
work. What the heck? I don't think I've changed any settings. That's weird. Well, let's see if it works.
Okay, I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back.
So let's see. All right, it did work. So we will share that as soon as Dan gets back. In the meantime, we'll continue on with the video.
Put it all the way down in Normie and Normie Fringe. And Normie Fringe. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is objectively a crazy take, but this jit was not serious, and he does not have hate in his heart. I think he was joking around. I think like if we had a conversation, he'd be like, yeah, I don't really think that. He would be amenable to an alternative position for sure. So that's kind of the opposite of Hegseth, where it's like more mainstream, but he's a freak, versus crazy take, but he's actually a normie saying this take. This is the weird thing, right? This is the weird sort of thing that the model gets at, I think, that it disentangles. And that's kind of why I wanted to separate these axes. I consider myself more of a classical liberal.
Mainstream, midway between Normie and middle.
Okay. Like here?
But like low, more towards Normie.
Okay. Yeah. I would sort of put it around. I would put it up here because this is sort of like the ideological line, right? This guy's thinking consciously about his politics. I think, yeah.
Oh, but if they know the term classical liberal, they automatically go up above that line.
Right. If you're like,
See, I would disagree with that. People that call themselves classical liberals are often trying to hide their power level, so to speak. They're just trying to pick a different label.
You mean they're more freak and they're trying to seem more
exactly? Yeah.
mainstream. Well, the weakness is that because he's sort of focused on the dogma side of it, he doesn't have a dotted line for the bottom half to separate. Like, what's the difference between the lower half of the normie and the upper half?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the difference? I'd be curious to think of what he thinks the difference is. If the difference between the upper half is dogmatic and the lower half of the top half is ideological. People who actually do think about their politics. So think about it a little, or it is considered, and then they're dogmatic about it. It's the level of, like, what is the y-axis? It's the he says it's the level of thinking about it too hard, or being dogmatic about it. I guess
it's the level of thought, and I guess we could add information. You could have like low information.
No, because
low care.
When you're dogmatic when you start omitting certain knowledge.
Okay.
And you start ignoring certain things. Like a turf ignores other like queer theory and other critical theory.
True.
They
True.
just reject it. They say it's idealistic. I'm not even sure they're reading it. If they are, they read it in bad faith. You know, I read their stuff in good faith. I could only get a third into it because it's just clear it's like they just hold contempt for queer people.
Yeah. Basically.
And
so.
and they're very idealistic, and they're not being materialist at all. If they were, they wouldn't reject critical theory as being idealist and what's the revisionist
Oh, sure.
or something like that.
Indeed. I did get your thing to work, so if we want to
cool.
switch over to that quick.
So yeah, so this is me also filling in some blanks in the same way that if I were to make a graphic of what this guy's doing, Taylor, I would make a graphic and then sort of puzzle out myself what I would do on that bottom half.
Just look a little better.
In this, there were some corners that she didn't get into. She sort of focused on the top half more than the other. But the point of this graph here is that all of this is still within the neoliberal zeitgeist. All of these subcultures, all of these different modes, like you'll find them all on TikTok represented by various people and subcultures. And it's all still late capitalist.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now the red archetypes I put in there, I would consider, and I think she kind of does too, but not fully. I guess this is my interpretation of her lecture video essay. Is these are the subcultures that are at least attempting to exit the zeitgeist or push the go beyond it. Either to ignore it or to not participate. So to me, to go beyond being a doomer is to kind of get so angry about the neoliberalism that you want to destroy it or whatever. You're escaping it by transforming it. And the slow living subculture is attempting to escape the zeitgeist by literally heading for the hills and being off grid. But if you look to off gridding, it's a subculture that's still very much a part of late capitalism. It's
Sure.
only it can only exist now, or at least off going back to the land was also it started with neoliberalism. In fact, it was just as neoliberalism, late capitalism was starting. The hippies and other radicals were like, "I'm rejecting what's happening,
Yeah,
and so we're going to go back to the land,
right,
try to start a commune and escape capitalism."
right.
And maybe they did for 10 years or 5 years. Some even lasted. And
Not even that for a lot of them, yeah.
of course, some degenerated into ugly things. A few lasted, There are five, eco villages have lasted.
Sure.
But and they're all in their 60s and 70s now.
Right. They're very much.
But training they've been training their replacements for a while. And conspiracies, they're thinking oh, I'm outside of the mainstream. I'm outside of the zeitgeist. I've gone beyond it. I'm free of the burdens of society's expectations and ideology and dogmas. But really, no, they're just much in it. But they're attempting to escape it. At least it's a goal.
Right.
Posthumanists, they're trying to escape capitalism, and they're going to do it with their billions of dollars. Or I'm going to invest in crypto so I can.
That's a good way of putting it.
Because the true goal of any capitalist is to not have to participate in capitalism. That is the great dark joke of it all. Even the capitalists don't want to be in the system. That's why they want a monopoly, so they don't have to compete anymore.
Yeah. Just have absolute control. Just have,
But so you may notice I couldn't figure out though what is the escapist version of the hustler. And I suppose
realists,
venture capitalists, they're realists. they want to escape capitalism by being the best capitalist. But is there a name for that? Is there a subculture around that? It's such a small group, I suppose,
Yeah.
that it's not represented on TikTok or mass media.
Yeah,
It's
what
it's
would
it's
that
hidden.
be?
They're not they're staying low.
You could do like
Or it's a culture of one and it's just Musk.
yeah. No, I think he's pretty post-human. I think he fits pretty well into that.
I think no, it's a fake I think
Really?
my take is that he's a fake tech bro. He's a fake post.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Everything about him is counterfeit, so
Well, like the Neuralink investments and whatever. It's like
SpaceX and yeah.
these are all money holes and means of like he sells this brand of being post-human and sustainability, but it's all a big lie. So he's really just a hustler and a diva, which is a female version of a hustler.
Nice reference. Yeah.
I don't even know what pops. Was that Beyonce or?
I don't know.
I know it's one of the pop.
I know the
beats,
song
the
anyway.
The teens.
So yeah, what would be a consumer maximalist, a realist? So maybe like the really rich doom preppers who are like buying islands for themselves and
Oh yeah. Does that have a name though? I guess preppers.
I guess preppers, doomsday preppers, but like also affluent, I guess.
But preppers are also doomers.
That's true.
But they're hyper capitalist though. The doomers is someone who doesn't like capitalism. They're a minimalist.
They're kind of a doomer.
Preppers are maximalists. So they buy shit that actually has a 3-year expiration date, thinking that they can hold on to things.
For
and
sure.
They hoard it. So maybe a prepper does fit there. You just don't think of a prepper as being like it is a subculture, and it's probably as
For sure.
large as a slow living. It's as far as I don't know what the numbers would be. It's not like it's measured.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they tend to be kind of paranoid as well. So,
but like off gridding isn't really escaping capital. Like the people who go off grid, like they still have a lot. It's minimal stuff, but it's still stuff, and they still participate in the economy. Like they're off grid, but they're still on their laptop doing whatever nomad digital programming work, whatever gets them income to afford going off grid. Because off grid they're not doing it in a way where it's like they're literally spending nothing. Otherwise, how the hell are they like paying for the internet to post their their content?
Oh, this is a very sad political compass, I gotta say.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It needs to be
because even as radicals, like, no, we still participate in this zeitgeist.
It's inescapable at this point.
It is inescapable. The point is not to escape it. That's sort of, I guess, any sci-fi writer is sort of hinting at that.
Mm-hmm.
You can try to imagine whatever utopia that's beyond capitalism or current zeitgeist, but you always kind of circle back around to it. I don't really believe like all utopias become dystopias. I think that's so cynical, and normie.
Yeah, I would agree.
But there is a tension where like I probably do need to read Ursula Le Guin's The Dispossessed.
Oh, that's one of my favorite books.
Okay, so give me your take then. Is the tone that the totally anarchist society just as oppressive because there's all these community standards that bear down on the individual?
No, like the biggest problem that crops up in this anarchist society is kind of just like a reassertion of dominance creeps back in, and it's not one that's likely to take over the whole society, but it's interesting the way it's interesting. Well, I forgot how she phrased it, but like it's people haven't been exposed to a lot of the what would we consider normie ideas of hierarchy and stuff. So not having any experience with it, it somewhat creeps back into some of the people, but that's it's not posed as being like a huge,
Well, it's funny if
existential
it
sort of
creeps
a
back
crisis.
in. That suggests that it's innate. That there's always this,
Right. There's always some people that are searching for hierarchies and natural orders to things.
like there's like it's some kind of genetic deep preposition of personality.
Yeah.
Or like certain personality types are genetic.
Which, I think there's some truth
there-
to that.
Is there truth? But is there evidence of it?
I don't
Are
think that.
geneticists able to? I guess it's always a matter of just percentages or like
I mean, if you want to talk,
probabilities.
yeah, if you want to talk genetics, like they have found links between, what was it, higher amygdala? What was the part of the brain? The fear part of the brain. People that tend to be more conservative tend to happen to have higher fear centers in their brain, and that's kind of how they operate. So sure, there's a little bit of a genetic.
So we need to give them some amygdala suppressant.
Yeah.
And then they won't be so fearful, and we can literally drug conservatism out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's brave
in
new
the same
world,
way where they think that leftists are mentally disturbed
mental disease,
and we need to be cured
be reprogrammed,
I guess, by being raped or something.
Oh God, yes.
Systematically abused.
Yeah, but getting back to the dispossessed, no, this is very much portrayed as a utopian society. They do have their struggles still, but most of their struggles have to do with it just being a very low resource moon. It's like having our moon if it was habitable.
Yeah.
So there is some water there, but not a lot. So you really have to manage the resource as well.
Yeah. Not really any luxury.
And
so it's not a post-scarcity gay luxury communist.
It is not. It is not. And then one of the anecdotes is, a train gets broken down right outside the small town. There's nothing for hundreds of miles in every direction, and there's no one coming to fix it for quite some time. The people are likely going to starve on the train, and the locals don't have enough resources to give to them to have them survive, and so they don't. And so the people end up starving. We're on the broken down train, and it's just kind of seen as like, well, that's just how it has to go because we have a scarcity here. But it's not an enforced scarcity. It just happens to be how.
But it's enforced because they're all exiled there.
It is enforced in that way, yes, for sure.
So it's not just a natural.
That's a fair point.
It is an injustice imposed by hierarchy.
That
is a
fair point.
Between the people on the moon and the people not on the moon.
Yeah, and the way the story goes, they were sent to this moon because anarchy was becoming so popular that it was threatening to tear down the current orders globally, and so they just said, "All right, here's our bargain with you. We can just keep fighting each other."
Oh, it was a bargain.
It was basically a bargain. Yeah,
really.
Struck
I would have taken it. I guess
the leader.
If they were so threatened, then that would have been the.
I know, that's what I kept thinking through the book. It's like, wow, if it was that much.
Why do they accept this?
Keep pushing.
Or if they're so strong on the moon, like why don't they like organize a resurgence and an invasion? Like when the Nazis get exiled to the moon, they come back in like Iron Harvest.
Yeah, sure. There's just not much.
Iron Sky was it called Iron Sky or Iron Sky?
Oh, that sounds familiar. Yeah,
it was this really cheesy movie.
But yeah, I mean, in the book, the lead guy, the Shevik, he does go back to Earth, as I don't know if he's like supposed to be an ambassador or whatever, but he does start another anarchist revolution, and so the implication is that it's going to start spreading again on Earth.
So there's a happy ending.
Yeah. No, it's a really great book.
Or a hopeful ending.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware. I remember somebody like explained it. I'm like, doesn't sound like all the other summaries I've heard of this book. But you know what? When a libertarian reads leftist anything, they just get the wrong. Like they just have the opposite conclusions about what the fuck the tone or the theme is. Right. Just like Carlin encountering leftist material.
Yeah. Right.
She doesn't have to. The audience doesn't have to talk to each other about why they hate leftists. They're just disgusted, and that's it.
Mhm. That's it. That's enough. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely recommend it. That'd be a fun book to cover at some point. In fact,
they're just immature bullies. It's really sick. Sorry, I flipped on Carlin for a second. It was like she was reacting to a city council public comment period at Worcester, Mass.
Oh,
and it had to do with trans resources, I guess. Okay. And so you had a lot of public speakers who were trans or non-binary or queer.
Sure.
And so she was just like, I don't know, doing that like, bro-y kind of teasing where you just, boy, look at these freaks, or like, I don't know, it's just mean. It's so
right-wing comedy is just so boring. It's
boring quick.
Slur or stereotype. That's the entire punchline of every conservative joke. So
I
don't know how they don't get bored of it.
We don't have to. Hell, I get bored of most leftist content. I mean, you got to keep it fresh, or you have to change up what you're doing, or else I'm bored in 2 years is the max.
For sure.
Whether you're savvy sab, and some of the boredom just comes from the jadedness of like, look, if you're gonna keep talking about third party stuff and how much the Democrats suck, then I better see you fucking join a party or an org. And you can still talk to all the other orgs and other activists and stuff. Just say, I'm doing this and I'm in solidarity with these other orgs. But no, they don't say they joined. They don't say they're doing it. They just talk about it. They talk about it forever because that's their business model.
Yeah.
If people actually join, then they don't need, I guess, the commentator talking about how they should, leave the Democrats or something. Mm-hmm. Unless they see themselves as a funnel towards other people who are the actual third parties.
Sure.
But guess what? Third party content isn't being boosted by them or linked. There's the funnel. It's not a funnel. It's a tumor. I forget what red tumor. I think it was Hakeem. I think that was doing that.
That was his phrase.
The left wing funnel.
Oh.
The right wing have a pipeline. We have a funnel.
Okay.
Anyway.
Interesting. All right. Shall we go back and finish up that video?
Yes. Now we've done this.
Do that.
I'm proud of that graphic, though.
Yeah, that's a good graphic.
And now we've puzzled out what I can put in that bottom corner.
All right.
Like self-consciously identifying as like a classical liberal, if you have any sort of like ideological label that you'd attach to yourself, I'd say you're not really a normie.
Yeah.
So he's here. This guy could be a freak, right? Like he could be like dogmatically committed to it, but in all likelihood, somewhere around here. You can have sophisticated conversation with anybody in this sort of band. You got to admit, Trump is pretty funny.
Definitely like normie.
Super normie.
I think pretty close to mainstream.
Yeah, I put this guy like
not quite mainstream.
Down here.
Yeah, pretty close. I would maybe even a little bit further to the right.
Your average Shane Gillis enjoyer is sort of like around here. This is why I think the model is important. If you're a freak and you see somebody say this, you assume they're up here and they're a freak just like you. And you're going to jump on them, right? Whereas you can probably talk to these people because they're not hardcore. Some of them are, but many of them are not. So I think it's important to be able to make that distinction. All cops are bastards.
Picture top right.
I don't think so.
I don't think top right. I think top middle.
Top middle.
Top middle.
Yeah.
Top middle.
If you're in certain circles, you're gonna get a lot of people who agree with you on that.
I don't think you're gonna change you're not gonna change their mind about that for the most part. That's true.
Yeah, I said top middle on this one.
Boom.
Boom! You guessed it right. I think you could hold this position and not be a freak.
Well, I finish up because he has an addendum.
Okay.
Right? There's probably some decent amount of people who hold this that are kind of down here.
Because then you say all though, then you're like
Yeah.
pushing yourself.
That's probably just the slogan, the lazy slogan. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might say that, but that's not exactly what they mean by it.
Yeah. Which I think is indicative of somebody who's kind of like
Yeah.
sloppy in their thinking. Yeah. Even though viewers of my channel would be more amenable to this statement, it's important to consider like what the actual psychological underpinnings of like the person
Well,
saying
that's the
it.
problem
You could
with
have a
just like he's just using a slogan or an archetype. He's not using an actual person now, like what he started with.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
this
that's
quiz
true.
is a little
About-
flawed because like this slogan, the slogan "All cops are bastards," can be used by anyone on that y-axis.
Mhm.
It can be used by somebody who's actually very normie and just doesn't like cops and doesn't attach any ideological significance to it or political project. And then there are those who are activists and use it like when they're chanting and against police violence, and it is ideological. And maybe they're dogmatic. Maybe it's just a catchy slogan that's fun to use, and it is fun to say, "All cops are bastards," and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, fuck 12.
Or I mean, just not saying individually every single cop that you go up to is going to be a
Yes.
bastard, but the system that they uphold is always a bastard
Yes.
system. So that's
And
a little different.
that's an up there idea.
Yeah.
That's a developed understanding that it's when we say all cops, we're referring to the institution of policing,
Absolutely.
not individual cops, which
Right.
is the lower level understanding, which, again, it is a slogan, so it can be taken a few ways. So you need other things to go with it, other identifiers, and thus spend
sure.
more than a few minutes talking to people.
Yeah.
When canvassing, and it's certainly when it comes to being online, a few comments you can't judge anybody by that, because especially without tone or body language, you don't know how serious someone is or what they're willing to do. Because again, it's sometimes internet commenting sections is just a game, and it's just sort of like playful banter or playing a game of wits,
Right.
and no one really means anything.
Yeah.
Or if you care and you do mean it, then you've lost.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you care. You cry harder. Yeah. Yeah.
Lip your tears.
Yeah.
What if
conversation with somebody who holds this opinion and they could be reasonable, or they might be a freak. I think that's the major distinction that we have to look at. Okay, that's it. It's over.
What the hell is Hakeem Jeffries doing?
That's a good question. Not
Big
very
bet.
much is the answer.
Can Majority Report and with Sam Cedar answer this question? Can they really truly answer anything?
All right. We've got time for one more.
You want to do the other Carlin video and we can put her to bed?
Let's do it.
I think this one's a little more entertaining than the last. Yeah, because it's her explaining the whole like where the left is too strong and or unstoppable.
Is this the fatal flaw of classical liberalism?
Yeah,
another term which he probably doesn't understand.
Because there is.
All right.
There is right leaning or conservative leaning or whatever you want to call that, and then there's left leaning.
Her main enemy is the woke right. People like the right wingers who care about race and like actually they all argue about what woke right means.
Woke right?
Yeah, it's like it's a term, it's a phrase that like the libertarians, the ANCAPs, and other types of centrists will use. I was recommended this channel by this guy who's like a hyper enlightened centrist dude, and he says that he was from the left, which could mean a whole lot of things. But he was gaining a law degree, and he was curious, so he took a course in CRT, and he was one of like the two guys that were just like, whoa, this is messed up. I'm turning into a right winger listening to this. I'm being pulled to the right. Like I'm rejecting. Like if this is what the left is, then I'm part of it. I'm not going to take any other classes, but I'm going to like read stuff and be educated. but like,
Wow.
but the way he still talks about things, like, okay, he's thinking about it, but he's still missing very large chunks of political science and understanding of all kinds. So, yeah, he's definitely like a messed up character. But anyway, the context here is like, so she, well, some of her videos would be bashing the woke right. Her main nemesis is one of those anti-communist grifter guys who calls, like, she calls her channel the cult because the guy calls the left a cult, but she also calls the left a cult.
Yeah,
he's also that type of edgelord who's like, oh yes, we're the only ones who are not dogmatic. Oh yeah, she's totally thinking through her beliefs.
Right. All right.
Or progressive leaning, and whatever you want to call that, who are liberal in the classical liberal sense, broadly speaking, or even to a degree in the modern liberal sense, which is its own problem. And then there are these kind of these entities that are not on the ends of that spectrum. They are actually separate from that spectrum. They have abandoned the kind of core classical liberal and modern, to a degree, liberal underpinning. And
that's what he's saying again. So again, guys, James's position is that if you are not a classical liberal, then you are on the woke right. I know that most people have heard me say this. Classical liberalism means the left wins. This isn't even hard to figure out. Classical liberalism means the left gets to continue doing everything that it's doing. It gets to continue causing as much chaos as possible. It gets to continue indoctrinating kids in school. It gets to continue to push bullshit all throughout the curriculum. It gets to continue to write as many books as it wants about crazy topics. It gets to continue to control media and entertainment. It gets to continue doing every single thing that it's doing today, except that every once in a while, the right sends it a strongly worded letter saying, hey guys, can we have a conversation about this? Can we have an intellectual debate where we all wear tuxedos and drink whiskey and smoke cigars? And can we talk about this? Because we think that what you're doing sucks and we don't like it. And we want to make an intellectual debate against it. And the left goes, piss off. No. Or the left goes, sure, we'll have a debate. And then they keep doing everything they're doing anyway, and nothing changes. And this is why the intellectual dark web completely failed at solving any problem at all.
So it's funny how her interpretation of basically like capitalist class, like she's interpreting like sending a strong letter to, you know, the activist left because they have all the power. They can be nice. They can just make it an intellectual debate because materially they're in power.
Right.
The classical liberals, code for capitalists, whatever.
Sure.
Moderate capitalists. They're in charge. They don't have to they don't have to work hard to take things seriously. So it's funny that like she's sort of like she has a cow about that. So she's listening to James Lindsay, who's her nemesis. And you can see the title is the woke right really woke?
Wow.
Circles and circles.
They made a lot of money for the people in the intellectual dark web, and then what
happened?
Oh
yeah. I was thinking about this, that you have all of these like what was I comparing it to? But you have these like so-called political scientists on the web or whatever, where they need. Maybe I'm just thinking of conspiracy theories in general, where it's like circles and circles and circles and circles, and you need to explain one thing, you need to make some other conspiracy to explain that. And it's circles, and it's similar to the defenders of the geocentric universe. You know, in order to make the orbits of the planets make sense, if the Earth is the center of the world, then their orbits need to be these circles and circles and circles and circles.
Sure.
Or the sun could be the center, and then the orbits are just all, you know, mostly ovals. Which is what the astronomers of the Renaissance were slowly figuring out once they had better telescopes, and you had certain fuddy-duddies, someone obviously on the spectrum who just just obsessively cataloged astronomical observations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brado Tito, I think, was one.
Hmm.
If I'm
Not
getting
familiar
his
with that
name
name.
wrong, but it sounded like that.
Cool. All right, let's see what Mr. Lindsay, and I don't like Lindsay either.
Oh yeah, no, they suck.
Yeah, it's big turf.
Everything continued as usual. This is why the so-called big tent of people who were just interested in individual liberties back in 2020, it's why it completely failed to solve the problem, because they all it was a narrative and a rallying cry to get people to vote for Trump, and it was never real. And so, like, basically, listen, in my heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I don't want the government to exist. I want people to be able to say,
I like this clip because this is where she's like, at heart, I'm an anarcho-capitalist.
That's how you know she's really thought things through.
It's kind of odd because she doesn't really express it that much. Like, she's just so focused on like hating queer people, basically.
Right.
And making that the focus of everything, and just how ineffectual the rest of her right-wing griftosphere is at fighting trans people. Because, you know, we're still winning, we're still gaining cultural ground.
Yeah, but like materially, there was so many anti-trans bills under Biden that passed at the state level.
Materially,
they're not winning.
But I mean, culturally, we're winning.
Oh, but culturally, they're more accepted. Okay. They just can't. They have to have everything. They can't just win in one front. It has to be everything. Or else
I mean, I don't.
Fail.
You could say we're winning culturally, and obviously, we're not satisfied with that.
True, because it is more.
Because it's not enough. It doesn't mean anything if it's just an ideas. You know.
Yeah.
More and more people under the age of 50 are anti-capitalist, and that's great. It means that you can go out and organize, and you can find a third of the people will actually like be supportive, or at least open to what, like, I mean, they'll still be probably jaded, but I mean, that's the obstacle, not the harder obstacle of not even entertaining socialism or any left-wing ideas, which is just sort of the stew of our parents' generation and what they had to deal with, and why did they go so realist and reformist? Because when Reagan was elected, it was by such a landslide. It seemed like nobody was entertaining, like, because I guess the left still meant welfare state and whatever, and everyone was simply very tired of, we're not going to solve social problems by making the poor the ward of the state. And that's something that kind of needs to be drilled into the heads of your social democrats now. You know, obviously, they're still under the illusion that, like, well, we just need to give the poor the right job training, and that's equal opportunity.
Right.
Unfortunately, they're not catching up with the fact that the market needs to, like, be continually expanding in order for there to be those jobs to pay for said training.
Doesn't do any good if the jobs aren't there or the jobs don't sustain.
And since our economy is all financialized, and that's basically heading towards disaster as we speak, I think all those liberals are at a loss of what to do.
Yeah.
Which is why, if they're either falling back on law and order type strategies to deal with the homeless.
Yeah.
It's really quite pitiful, and it's sort of making me sort of China pilled. I'm sort of spending my in casual conversations. I'm just dropping, like, China's the future, New World Order. It's not going to be. We're not leading it anymore. Even our military strength doesn't, like. I'm wondering, like, what it's going to count towards. It's going to fall apart, like, within a year or so, if we're not supplied properly. And as far as, like, the rest of the world's main trading partner is now China.
Yep.
Not America. Are all of those trade deals that Hillary was. I even forgot what it's called because we beat it so badly, I guess, or Trump winning killed it. But the thing that was going to like allow us to continue economically dominating East Asia, or at least our puppet states.
Are you thinking of the Pacific Partnership?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Was it PIPA? Pacific?
Something like that.
Yeah. But SOPA, PIPA, or was
Some dumb
SOPA?
acronym,
SOPA was
yeah.
just the anti-piracy thing. Stop Island piracy. That's stuff.
Yeah, but getting back to the culture part of it, I don't get why the right is so obsessed with winning the culture war. Is it just that they so desperately want to be cool and accepted, and
because they're not
they feel like
poor, they're not
weird-
struggling economically.
right? So why do they fight so hard to win the culture? Why do they care so much?
Because it makes them feel like they're losers.
It's
Because
just-
they can be not struggling economically, but if that's not represented in the media, then that really hurts their self-image, their image of themselves. What does their success mean if they can't gloat about it? Before, it doesn't make them happy.
yeah, no, yeah. I guess that much is obvious. Yeah.
I noticed that when I was reminiscing mentally about when one meditates, when I work out, that there were people from Hebrew school that I had play dates with as an 8, and they would live in McMansions or have material wealth that
Sure.
I could only dream of, and as one moment I'm impressed. And at the other end, I'm like, I don't actually want to have another play date with this person. I don't like them that much. I mean, I want to have friends. They're not part of the clique bullying me. But that doesn't mean I actually have anything in common. And hanging out with them for a day or an afternoon showed me this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know
They're
what you
high
mean.
strong. They're single kids with a lot of pressure on them or something. Their parents are lawyers and they're absentee or whatever. I don't. I wasn't that observant, but I was just giving you relaying a vibe.
Yeah.
One thing I remember on a play date is we played Eco the Dolphin on the Sega Genesis. That's all I remember.
That was a
what we
good
did.
one.
But I
That's
don't
a hard
like
game.
the guy's name was Nathan.
Nathan.
Yeah.
Classic rich kid name.
What?
Classic
what?
rich kid name.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just kidding.
Like Richie Rich.
Oh, yep.
But like I sort of had like, because it was the time Richie Rich was coming out in theaters, that I had like, it felt like visiting Richie Rich, going to this McMansion, the house that's 3 times the size of mine. Certainly there was someone in the neighborhood, Julian, I think, and Logan, I think. No, yeah, it was a Julian or something. Anyway, it was just a 3 or 4 story row house. But each floor he had his own floor. I think that's what blew me away. He had his own floor of 4 rooms, and each room had like stuff in it. So it's like an indoor jungle gym, and it's like it was filled with stuff, toys and stuff. So he had a lot of stuff. So that blew me away, and I spent a day or so there. And again, I think I got along with him a lot better. This is elementary school, but he moved, or the family ended up moving.
Yeah.
Better, greener pastures, I guess. I don't remember what house it was, but I just know it was a row house, so it must be in the neighborhood.
For sure.
They're nowhere else around here.
All right. Well, let's continue on. Let's see how far we can get in this.
Oh, we're only a minute in.
Yeah.
Can do whatever they want as long as they're not impacting me and not forcing me to do anything. However, I also live in reality. I also live in the real world, and I know as long as we continue on any sort of like classical liberal path where every once in a while the left gets sent like a strongly worded letter saying, "Hey guys, can you cut this bullshit out because we don't really like it for reason X, Y, B, and Z." Intellectual arguments are never going to win this battle. The left is too far ahead. They don't give a fuck what the right says. There is no amount of intellectualization or critique or debate that's going to change any of this. And so if people want to commit to classical liberalism, then you might as well get yourself...
But their arguments suck.
Yeah.
So we just...
It always boils down to, I'm ahead and I think I should be, so that's a good system.
Yes. I like this rant because she's pumping up us
Yeah,
up as
yeah,
being
yeah,
ahead and dominant. It's always funny.
Yeah,
The
like,
end,
she never
the
quite
end
says.
caps are so impressed,
I'm sure.
but they are the personification of the meme of the guy riding a bicycle and then putting a stick in the
Putting
front
this thing in
wheel,
the yeah,
crashing,
right.
and going like, "God damn queer Marxists."
Yeah.
Her main grift is like the whole like corrupting the youth thing, though. Like she's okay with queer people, she's okay with trans people. It's just the corrupting of the youth that gets her so mad.
Corrupting of the youth.
If you just let the kids alone, I wouldn't hate you so much.
Right.
That's literally what she said. She talks that way.
Yeah.
That's where I tune out. I'm like,
I want to
okay,
know
this isn't funny.
what happens in her mind where there's like this corruption camp that all the youth get sent to and forced to like watch videos with their eyes wide open.
Knowing her streams, I know exactly where it's coming from. So she picks out basically woke trainings or sensitivity trainings that like teachers presentations that
be nice to people. Wow.
Teachers give to other teachers on gender affirming care,
sure,
or queer history, or she watches a talk by like how to do socialist organizing in libraries, and stuff like that. Things that are like, it's not made up that there are leftists who are having an impact on school curriculums or whatever. And sometimes it's just like that, the cringe woke stuff or the anti-racism, Exahim Kendi type shit, or whatever, or the white fragility type of training. So it's like that being as the industry that it is has getting inserted or has trickles down into school districts. So she's using that.
Even that stuff, like to look at, you should be nicer to people, and also maybe you should feel a little bit guilty about how you've behaved in the past and try and do better. To look at that as like just this sinister, underhanded corruption of the children, I can't get in that mindset.
It's definitely an exaggeration, and that's where it's like, well, I was ready to kind of take you seriously since you like seem to want to take left-wing content in good faith sometimes, but then you take it in really bad faith all the time. So
yes.
So then I have to like retract any like sympathy that I kind of had as, oh, look at this right winger who's trying or like doing something different. But at the end of the day, she's not. She's just looking like she just does streams where instead of just I think now that she's done enough content to establish herself as like an intellectual titan, more of her streams are just like the one where she just looked at that council. But maybe it's just because Trump's president. I think in the last, again, her career is only the last 4 years, so her time scale of and her perspective of like the culture war is like it's wild to me as someone who's 36, someone who's like got into the culture war and has been talking about it and is in the thick of the fight in the culture war and the battles of the culture just within the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a grizzled veteran. I've been in the culture war since 2002, motherfucker. You won't believe the shit I've seen. I survived the war on Christmas, the theater of the Tea Party, and the fires of Occupy. The culture war is.
I was there for the Satanic Panic. You have no idea what you're up against.
I saw spaceships on the rings of Orion. I saw I forgot the whole monologue.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at.
I saw things you won't believe. Well, you know what I'm getting at.
Yes. Horrors beyond human imagination.
They'll all be like gone, like tears in the rain.
All right, let's try to get a little bit further into this video because we're only a couple minutes in. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. What the heck did I do? Oh, there we go.
Ready for communism because that's where it's going to go. This is why I say I am not on the same team as James Lindsay, because James Lindsay is on team classical liberal. I think that classical liberal gives the left everything they want.
Except real power.
Ethnic neutrality is, I mean, the woke left also counters ethnic neutrality. They say that the hegemonic, the past hegemonic values were bad and exclusive of alternative views, and nothing is neutral. The woke right also agrees that nothing is neutral.
Duh.
Instead, that there is.
Well, that's what it means to be
some
hegemonic. That's what it means to be hegemonic. You know,
Yeah.
the critique is that they are hegemonic.
Yeah.
Not that the hegemonic values are bad. It's that these values were hegemonic and they were dominant.
Didn't allow for anything else.
And thus dogmatic. Yeah, it didn't allow anything else.
Cultures like the one that they hearken to in romanticized vision of the past is good.
For the last almost 100 years, the left has run roughshod over every major institution in society. They took over the colleges and universities. They took over the K through 12 public schools. They took over the news media. They took over entertainment. They took over nonprofits. They took over corporate America. They took over many institutions within the federal government. They infiltrated the military. They infiltrated churches. Classical liberalism did nothing to stop them. So maybe, can we maybe just consider for a moment that maybe the left was onto something? Maybe because based purely on the virtue of them being completely successful in taking over and controlling all of the institutions that they tried to take over and control for almost 100 years, can we maybe just consider the fact that maybe they were onto something with their methods? And based purely on the fact that classical liberalism was never able to stop them, maybe the fact that the left controls every major institution in our society is pure evidence of the absolute and abject failure of classical liberalism. And so if the left is so successful doing everything that they've done, being an illiberal ideology, then maybe it's worth considering that if we really want to beat the left, maybe we have to stop doing the same things that we've been doing for almost 100 years, because those things are not working. I know I feel like I'm simplifying this too much. I feel like I'm just really like making this something that like a 5-year-old can understand. But the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expecting different results.
Well, like, what through line is she even talking about?
Right,
Like, remember, she's the one living in reality. That's the big fucking joke about it. She's the one living in reality. The reality where we control all institutions. It's great how powerful we are.
I know. Like I was
And it's all because
to learn.
it's all because classical liberalism couldn't stop us.
That's why. And classical liberalism has been the only right ideology for the past 100 years. They've tried no other tactics.
They've had
It's not as though
there's been no
neoliberalism
right wing
came
presidents. There's been no right wing presidents.
Yeah, right.
There's been no right wing policy in education. I must have imagined No Child Left Behind.
Right. Yeah.
I guess that
was left behind.
That was woke leftism. That was woke leftism.
It's in disguise. Yeah.
The privatization of schools, which are charter school moves. That was all woke. Woke
Yep.
left. Woke leftist.
And I
I'm just
assume-
thinking about the cavalcade of events just in the last 10 years or 20 years. And she's like, 100 years. She's using she's making herself. This is just like,
100
it makes her
years.
look smarter because she's able to say, this has been going on much longer because I've read about the past. No, I think you have to be 5 years old to like her content.
I think so.
Or at
to
least
believe
emotionally.
what she says. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, her audience are, I think, not much of them are there to take her seriously. There are a few regulars who seem to be like palling around with her, and they're on the same page, or they're very good at playing this
Playing the game.
playing it up.
Yeah.
They're most of her audience are dipshits that she argues with, tells them to shut up and listen to teach her. She's all hierarchical. she's an ANCAP, remember? She's an ANCAP. She must be in a hierarchy, but she's like she loves hierarchy of all kinds. So she's and she the only other like political identity that she kind of has is she likes the Groypers. Which is just like they're fascists, right?
Yeah.
Or they're like cringe loser fascists. But she talks about them like they are cool. Like they're making culture and they're like actually making right wing cool again. Because they're confident. Like are we talking about the people that I think she's talking about?
Yeah, because they made Pepe a thing for a little while and like
that's classic now.
Yeah, right?
8 years now.
You see it everywhere,
Well, just remember, Zach, that those that are 22 years old were born after 9/11.
Indeed.
Meaning that, like, let's see, the people who were born when Gamergate was happening are approaching being a teenager. So like for their their lifetime shorter. So something that like happened when they were babies or toddlers is ancient history.
Ancient, yeah.
Right? It's not in their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that's what I mean, where like the culture war for me is like practically my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because of my like semi-activist father and living in a neighborhood that was when I was born, being covered in soot from a trash incinerator facility, built as a gesture of environmentalism. Because burning trash is more
gets rid of the trash
than dumping.
Just goes away.
Yes, and you get power from it.
Yeah,
so you're burning less oil.
It's a win-win,
and you're burning less oil.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gas burning facility now. The big leap forward for the New York State is to decarbonize the Empire State Plaza, which is simply to make the chillers, and instead of running it from the gas generator. So the gas plant is a steam generating plant. So the steam is used to heat and cool the plaza and all the state buildings, the Capitol, everything. And although the push has been to kind of get geothermal in there, what the planners are doing now is just to decarbonize, which is to electrify the chillers and the boilers and all that, and just have gas plants somewhere else and not in the hood. So no pollution inside of Albany, fine, but it still means
push it into the hinterlands.
yes. we're still building gas infrastructure, and now it's like, oh, the only way we can meet energy needs and all this electrification is to build nuclear.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, the environmental movement is split on this.
Yeah.
Some section are just sort of like, it's inevitable. There's no point in fighting this. So we're not going to build public support against it. Third is like me and other Greens, where it's like, no, we got to oppose this. It's just a fucking disaster. Third, 3 Mile Island was 3 Mile Island. No, Indian Point was just as a total sink. You know, it's like, oh, it's clean energy. Yeah, that was a promise in 1970.
Yeah.
It was the opposite of that. It had many delirious environmental effects and whatever.
Fukushima more recently.
Well, that's when a tidal wave hits it, right? But even without it, the amount of water it uses, the amount of runoff and other such, like there are externalities.
For sure.
I can't list it all offhand, but I mean it's there.
I mean, the biggest problem is it doesn't do anything to address the main problem, which is just the overconsumption of energy. We don't live within the Earth's budget of energy.
We're going to be, and my something I need to dig up is that graph or chart that like basically like if all electricity generation went to nuclear tomorrow,
yeah,
there would only be enough uranium in the world, or mineable uranium, or production of uranium. We'd only have it power for 20 years.
Yeah. It's not a long.
And
it's not
the uranium
as long term
out there is in Niger and like 3 other places. And it's like, in order to get it, you need to brutally exploit the people there. And it's like, well, fine, how many people are you willing to kill to have nuclear again? As a bridge. But it's just like with the gas plants. If it's such a bridge fuel, then where is the real plan to switch to renewables?
Where are they being developed? Yeah.
For the whole grid in 30 years.
Right.
Is that really happening? Is that really what the industry is going to allow? Is that like, fuck off? And so, yeah, obviously political capacity for degrowth needs to be grown, and that at least starts by gaining people's trust with the bread and butter issues. But getting people's trust where it's like, look, if we do certain initiatives to lower your and our collective trash output, then we don't have to spend so much of our tax dollars on trash disposal.
Sure.
This is how we can lower taxes or lower costs. Because right now, Albany's plan is to simply ship the trash somewhere else, which is like double the cost of dumping it, because at least we had the dump that we controlled it. It was actually a money maker. Now we're going to be losing money on trash. So
it's like the city response to every problem. Oh, there's homeless, so ship them elsewhere. Oh, there's crime, ship it elsewhere. You know.
Well, externalities. These are externalities. So, like society, capitalism externalizes these social ills, and so society has to sort of treats it like pollution, which it's a type of pollution. We need to stop it at source. And that also means stopping a certain amount of GDP, which is why even though I boot it up, I'm always banging my head against the table whenever I play Democracy 4. And I'll just finish our stream with this. I was replaying Democracy 4, and I hit that wall where it just hits me, where it's like, oh yeah, the economy is only measured in GDP, and GDP can only be created by capitalists. So you can have the entire population 100% socialist, and you can provide like basic guaranteed services and a job guarantee, at least through mods that I downloaded. But you can pay for these things. You have to pay for these things with tax revenue. The tax revenue comes from taxable industry and economic activity, which will necessarily be capitalist. So like you cannot have a socialist economy. It can only be hybrid, where there's a meter for like how much of the GDP is state controlled. Right.
Gotcha.
Which is only just like, basically no private healthcare, no private housing, no private schools. I got that all out. No private trains, no private water, no private telecoms, So
the
you can
essentials, yeah.
nationalize that, but then there's everything else, and the last like big communist step, which I don't know how to do because you need 50 political power, and the max is 42.
Mm.
Like you can only get the 50 max if you have 100% popularity, but I can't get 100% popularity unless I'm really hitting, I guess, the corporate sector hard. But then without that, then they all leave the country. Sorry. The big policy is capital control, which stops corporations from leaving. It stops capital flight, right? But you can't. But it's admitting you need capital, and you can't just expropriate it. You'd think if my population's 100%, then there needs to be a policy for expropriating capital, and socializing and nationalizing these other industries, the consumer industry, the tech industry. Those policies aren't there, and there's no one making a mod for that. Why isn't there?
I don't know. Sounds like
so.
An opportunity.
And the whole fact that economic activity is just GDP. So like you can have, and GDP grows and falls with the global economy, which is capitalist.
Right.
Even when I'm playing USA, which is the world capitalist hegemon, if I turn the USA socialist, it does not change what the rest of the world is doing. The economy is still doing this. So when it's down, my surplus goes away. But what I've done is I've cut the debt in half. I started with 32 trillion debt. Now I'm down to 14. But because basically I keep taxing, but like I'm not raising spending too much. But I could. But anyway. But I've been slowly lowering income taxes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, because the middle class is like 60% of the Actually, it's basically 80% of the country is middle class, because everything's nationalized and all that. So like there's just tiny wealthy, all middle class, no one's poor. Literally the poverty is like it's zero. Nice. Crime is zero. Health is 100. Education's 100. But unemployment never can go to zero. I don't know what the fuck. But in order to get it to zero, I basically need to be spending $1 trillion on space or something. It's weird. It's a weird game.
Yeah, I haven't played that. I'll have to try sometime.
It's a capitalism simulator,
For sure.
Political simulator anyway. But
all right. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there. Run out of time for tonight. I appreciate you being on as always, and look forward to what you bring next time. We didn't make it too far into that video, but I put the link in the chat.
We can drop Carlin from there. I think there's not much else.
We've mined the content for now.
Yeah, and now as I'm running for office, I don't have the time to just sit through her streams anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
No way.
For sure. All right. Well, have a good one, Dan, and I'll see you next time.
Later.
All right, that was Dan Platt of the Albany Green Party. Hopefully I said it right that time. Albany. I think it's Albany. I don't know why I can't get that. Anyway, thank you all for joining tonight. I think the next time I'll be on is this Sunday. I apologize for not getting to it this last Sunday. Had grad school come up and get in the way, but we should get back into more of the gaming content this Sunday. So look forward to that. Amanda says good night to you all as well. I guess not with her out loud voice, but
Night.
Okay, there we go.